Paper promises, credit, crisis, and the birth of American money. In the late 17th and 18th centuries, the colonies of North America faced a paradox. They were rich in land, labor, and ambition, but poor in money. Coins were scarce, silver drained back to Europe, and trade ran on credit, barter, and promises. Out of this scarcity, a new kind of wealth was born, one made not of metal or sugar, but of trust. This is the story of how the American colonies invented their own money, how paper replaced silver, and how credit became the engine of a new world. The problem of scarcity. In the 1600s, the American colonies were economically vibrant, but financially starved. Most trade revolved around British merchants, and hard currency, gold and silver, was always in short supply. The colonies depended on foreign coins, Spanish pesos, Dutch ducats, and French livres. Even everyday goods, nails, corn, tobacco, sometimes served as money. When England restricted the flow of silver through navigation acts and trade monopolies, the colonies were left improvising. Without enough coins to trade, they began inventing new systems of value, local, fragile, and revolutionary. Commodity money and colonial ingenuity. Before paper, the colonies relied on commodity money. In Virginia, tobacco became the primary currency, weighed, stored, and exchanged like coins. In Massachusetts and Pennsylvania, wampum beads, furs, and even rum filled the same role. This was money grounded in substance, something you could touch, taste, and trade. But it was also unstable. A bad harvest or a spoiled crop could wipe out an entire economy. Colonists began to realize that what they needed wasn't more goods, it was a system of trust, a system that could turn promises into value. The birth of paper money. In 1690, the Massachusetts Bay Colony did something no European power had dared. It issued paper bills of credit to pay soldiers returning from an expedition against Canada. These were not backed by silver, but by the government's word, a promise that the notes would be accepted for taxes and trade. It was the birth of paper money in the Western world, and though it was risky, it worked. Merchants accepted it, trade revived, and other colonies soon followed. Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, and the Carolinas began printing their own bills. Paper money was faster, lighter, and more flexible, a radical shift from the metallic economies of Europe. But it also introduced a new danger: inflation. Too much paper could make promises worthless. Credit, trust, and the colonial economy. By the mid-1700s, colonial life ran on credit, long chains of debts and promises stretching from small farmers to London bankers. Merchants extended goods on account, planters borrowed against future crops, and entire towns operated on mutual trust. It was an economy built on relationships, not coins. And while it kept commerce flowing, it also made the colonies deeply dependent on London. British creditors could demand repayment at any time, a financial leash that kept the colonies under imperial control. When that leash tightened, through new taxes and trade restrictions, resentment grew. Money had become political, and revolution was brewing. The Currency Act and the Seeds of Revolution. In 1764, the British Parliament passed the Currency Act, banning the colonies from issuing their own paper money. To London, it was a way to maintain fiscal discipline and protect British merchants from devalued colonial notes. To the colonies, it was an assault on their autonomy, a direct strike at their ability to trade, build, and govern themselves. Benjamin Franklin, a printer and economist, defended paper money passionately. He called it the lifeblood of commerce. When Britain tried to control not just their taxes, but their money, the colonies began to see that political freedom and financial independence were inseparable. The road to revolution was paved with paper, not gold. The Revolutionary War and the collapse of trust. When war broke out in 1775, the Continental Congress had no treasury, no coins, and no banks, so they printed their own money, the Continental Dollar. Continental notes declared the bearer is entitled to receive X dollars, but without backing in gold or silver, and with states printing their own versions, the value of the dollar plummeted. Inflation soared. Soldiers refused payment. Merchants demanded coins again. The phrase, "not worth a continental," entered the language, a painful reminder that trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. But even in failure, these early experiments taught a lesson, that money was not just metal, it was belief. Banking and the birth of a national currency. After independence, the new United States faced chaos. Each state had its own money. Inflation lingered. The young republic needed financial unity. In 1791, under the guidance of Alexander Hamilton, the government established the first Bank of the United States, a central institution to manage credit, collect taxes, and stabilize currency. Hamilton's vision was clear. The nation would build prosperity not by hoarding gold, but by organizing credit, turning confidence into capital. His opponents, like Thomas Jefferson, warned that paper money and banks would empower elites, but Hamilton saw something greater, a future where finance could build industry, cities, and the American dream itself. The age of paper promises had truly begun. From scarcity to confidence. The story of early American money is a story of risk and imagination. When coins ran out, people created value from trust. When empire restricted them, they invented autonomy in ink and paper. From tobacco to treasury bills, from barter to banking, each step moved America further from the old world of mercantilism and closer to the financial systems that define our lives today. In the end, every dollar, whether silver, paper, or digital, is still what it was in 1690, a promise, a fragile thread of faith that holds the world together.